Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of MLP, which stands for Inside Major League Pickleball. I am your host, Tyson Apostle, one of the godfathers of pickleball podcasting, and we are here to cover all the ins and outs and get the full scoop on all things pickleball, especially Major League Pickleball. I am here and joined by my co-host, the most recognizable voice in pickleball. She watches more pickleball than anybody in the world. I would say the world leader in pickleball viewership. Michelle McMahon. What's up, Michelle?
By 100% choice. What's up, Tyson? How's it going? No pickleball this weekend, though.
None. So did you watch reruns? What were you doing?
I know. Yeah, I just watched. I started back in 2021, rewatched all the Major League Pickleball start to finish. And so I continued on.
You got to keep up that 60 to 80 hours a week of pickleball viewership. Without all of the matches and the pickleball coverage, the main storyline this week from the pickleball world was Riley Newman breaking up with Matt Wright.
It's breakup season. Riley Newman just steals the headlines every time there's no news. He's like, I'm not doing paddle taps. And then he's like, I'm breaking up with my partner. He picks really good moments to do that too, by the way. I wonder if that's a PR
planned
move. I wonder.
Maybe he's got a whole PR team about him. So
I know that doesn't really surprise me, though. I guess I kind of felt like that was coming because he's been so close. I mean, I'm not saying it's Matt Wright's fault or anything, but I think from Riley's perspective, it's like I'm right there with Ben and Colin. I think he wants to test the market, see if there's somebody else he can make a push with, if there's somebody else that can counter the Johns brothers. I mean,
compliment Riley.
I think that has to be part of his agreement too, of like whoever he contracts on with him for the next year, of like, that's the barometer. If we're not beating Ben and Colin, I reserve the right to also exit this partnership and try. I mean, you don't want to be that revolving door, but I think it's a fair part of the negotiation. Until you beat Ben and Colin, keep shopping.
So who do you think? Right? So what do you think is going to happen here with Riley? You think he's going to test a few partners and go through like he did with his female partners when Lindsay wasn't present?
Yeah, I don't know. I would think that would be the logical way to do it. Of like just test I can see it both ways, right? Because if you're committed to a partnership, then I feel like it takes the pressure off at least the other person to not be like auditioning. But you look at what Annalie Waters is doing with Catherine and Anna, and that doesn't seem to be a problem, but she's also Annalie Waters. So it's like if Ben Johns was auditioning male partners, you're probably going to have an edge no matter what. So I feel like it'll be, I don't know. That's a good question. Julian Arnold's the name that's floating out there. AJ Kohler's the name that's floating out there. So we'll see. I could see Julian being an interesting dynamic with Riley.
That'd be a fiery duo.
That would be fiery. Yeah. But then I don't know. I guess you could put Riley on the right, then Julian on the left. I don't know how you would work out the sides there, but what do you think? Who do you think's in the mix for this?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many variables. Riley loves to take control. He loves to be in charge. So you have to have a player that's willing to let him do that, right? And so I think that's probably what the conversations will come down to, is who is good enough to complement Riley and also let Riley do Riley.
Yeah.
And that does narrow it down a little bit. But yeah, I think that I haven't seen him play much with anybody other than AJ when they were on the hard eights. So,
which I don't think went overly well for them.
Yeah. So is he practicing with someone in secret that we're not seeing? Does he just have people in mind that he's going to try out? I think we're going to see him play with a couple people.
I think so too.
And figure it out. So that's interesting.
It, right? It's like you got to move in with somebody before you marry them, kind of thing. That's like test the waters. I mean, I guess it depends on your thoughts there. But yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see. You know, I think would be a sneaky good partner for him, Thomas Wilson.
Oh, I thought you were going to say me.
You,
it obviously. Could be Thomas Wilson. Thomas Wilson.
I mean, he has a full-time job, so that's a variable. How many tournaments he's able to make it through in the rotation, but with his heart issues addressed, his health is back. Then we saw the LA Mad Drops take down Ben Johns and Tyler Loom.
Yeah.
So I think he's proven there, but I think he's so underrated. I'm a big Thomas Wilson fan.
And he's super adaptable. Like, I feel like he could be one of those guys that, you know, could let Riley be Riley and he can still fill in those gaps where it's needed. So,
like the personality, he's an easy fit.
Well, Michelle, we don't want to dwell too much on this because we literally know almost nothing about it other than Riley is not going to be with Matt Wright. And the only thing we can hope for is that in this upcoming draft, a team selects Riley and Matt Wright to be on the same Major League Pickleball team the second half of 2023. So great.
Oh, man.
We have an amazing guest today, but before we get to that, Michelle, you want to hit us with those ad reads?
I sure do. Let's do it. Let's thank our partners over at ProXR, the official paddle of MLP, the only paddle custom fit for your grip. Knock Around, the official sunglass partner of Major League Pickleball, quality shades that won't break the bank. Aura Organic, the official nutrition partner of MLP. Transform your health with plant-based nutrition from Aura.
And we got Toyota, we got Imperial hats, and we've got Sunday Swagger. So all of those.
First.
And OS First. We've got a lot of new brands coming on and just building the Major League Pickleball empire. Let's get to our guest.
Okay, Tyson, time to welcome in our guest this week. He's the commissioner of Major League Pickleball, an advisor of Duper, and he's fresh off the biggest win of his pickleball career, a win against me in mixed doubles. And I demand a rematch. He is Brooks Wiley. Brooks, welcome back. How far we've come since you were last on in the fall. And if there were any doubts about pickleball making it to the big leagues, I think Major League Pickleball has put that to rest. It truly is first class in every part of the phrase. And congrats, my friend, on season 1 being in the books. Huge milestone there. So much to get into. MLPalooza, so much notoriety in the VIP tent this event. I was blown away by the star power that just continued to flow through. We got the super final to talk about, redraft coming up, but let's start big picture with San Clemente. From your perspective, you've obviously been here since the beginning. What was the most special overarching thought for you on MLP San Clemente?
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. It was a pleasure to beat you on the pickleball court.
I'm gonna go shopping for a better men's double partner, but that's nor here nor there. Here, Riley's on the market.
Oh no, throwing the partner under the bus.
I'm just kidding. Sorry, guy.
Yes, San Clemente. I mean, what our goal is every event to get bigger and better, both what you see externally and then also behind the scenes as well. Obviously, San Clemente, an incredibly beautiful venue. I think you can see that on the photos of the athletes, just the photos of the venue. You can see it on the stream. I was incredibly impressed that, we got crowds out there every single day, whether it was Thursday afternoon watching Challenger players or Friday morning when there's 4 courts going also with there were 200 people watching a premier level match on court 4 on Friday morning at 10 o'clock. And you just don't generally see that at a lot of pickleball tournaments. So we had not only, the stadium court, I wouldn't say like always sold out, but a good crowd there, plus, tons of people watching on the outer courts as well. And then, this is the first time we've done this, the super final, which was essentially the season 1 championship, right? We call it the super final, but it was the championship for season 1. And I was also, both scared going in, but impressed just to be out there it was a Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And there were, that stadium was, again, not completely full, but, 80% full. There were a lot of people there watching pickleball on a Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And then the crowds got progressively bigger as we got closer to the 6 o'clock start for the premier final.
What were what were your fears there? You said you were afraid going into the super final.
I mean, we're just always I wouldn't say afraid, but we're always, doing as much as we can to engage the local communities. We use Duper, engaging local clubs. We got great people like Vinny Brasha, Mary and Maggie's dad, who live in the area, who'd help bring people out. So we're always trying to do those grassroots efforts and marketing to get butts in seats. And you just never know how it's going to turn out. Right. And there's always that anxiety, like, what if nobody shows up? And so also, like, and this was a learning that we had and some feedback from owners and players as well, is like Monday, after being there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, that's a long weekend. That's a lot of days of pickleball. And I think, maybe in the future we might look at doing that as the season championship as a separate event, so that it's both from a player perspective of like just being tired and again trying to maintain that audience over that extended period of time is challenging. But so that was the anxiety, I guess. But it was a big crowd. And again, like, the sun's going down, or not the sun, it's not really going down at 6 o'clock, but like you've got the ocean in the background and the beautiful hills. And it was like really, really cool. And as the premier final started, there were a lot of people in the stands. And then also sometimes what you can't see on camera is there's another, 200 people in the VIP tent on one baseline, and there's a whole row of people watching from the merch tent, filming as well. And both sides of the stadium and, up above the stadium. So it was ended up being exceeding our expectations. And then also like every time we have an event, our YouTube views just continue to grow. And that's super encouraging.
And additionally, you also had MLPalooza. We'll dive into the season 1 finale because I have a couple questions there as well, especially from the player standpoint. But you got to play in front of a spectacular crowd yourself. We hear, just kidding. But MLPalooza, that was to me another special highlight of San Clemente. Owners got drafted, pro players got to be involved in the draft process. How did that come to be? Whose brainchild was it? Who was on your team? What were the results? Give us the full scoop of the ownership MLPalooza, and where are we going from here? Because I need to play in the next one, so I need to make my schedule fully available for the next MLPalooza event. Thank you very much.
I think it was Brian Levine, our former interim CEO, his idea, and it came from, we're always trying to come up with programming, whether it's in between the Challenger and Premier finals on Sunday or in between the events on Monday, just trying to find programming both for the in-house venue crowd and then sometimes on the stream, so that we just don't lose people when there's a 1 or 2 hour break. And then also just a way to engage our ownership groups and get, celebrities like James Blake, Doug Ellen involved and engaged and having fun. And it was the most fun. It was, we had pretty big crowds for that it was also like Monday morning at 10 o'clock and there's, multiple matches going on. We had matches going on, I think, on 4 courts at a time. And then we eventually had the finals on the championship court as people were starting to like file in for the 3 o'clock Challenger super final. There was a lot of, it was definitely nervous to play in front of, that many people. And especially like other owners like Richie and Tim Parks, who love to talk a big game, but don't make it to the super finals, or don't make it to the championship. So
shots fired across the board.
That's what Julio, who was on my team, DiPietro, who is our new CEO, said. I don't care how we do it. We beat Richie in the first match. So Richie and Zubin. So it was, so I also want to thank like the pro players. Travis and Vivian were our coach. Travis showed out on Sunday and Vivian was there on Monday. James Ignatowicz, Rafa Hewitt, Zane Navratil, Leah Jensen, Georgia Johnson, who her team won the championship. It was super cool to see them involved and like coaching and high-fiving, when we make a good shot. It was really cool to see them take the time out to do that. So our team was Graham D'Amico, who's on Travis's friend and on his podcast, Mikey Gendel, who's the GM of the Mashers, James Blake's team, and then myself and Julio. And we crushed through group play. including beating Amir Delic and George from Rafa's team. We were down big in that match, and then got to the finals and ran into a buzzsaw that is James Blake, and it turns out that he's pretty good at pickleball.
Listen, I saw this event happening, major FOMO, but I immediately went back to, and a lot of people will say, like, this isn't how it's done in other professional leagues. This isn't how it's done in the NBA. Like, but this is the same thing. You wouldn't see this in a lot of other professional leagues. And it's a huge positive that the owners know how to play. They're involved in the sport. They're involved with their team. The players are involved with the owners. And it, I think, is a much tighter network than we see in other sports. I think that's what makes pickleball so special.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And we will 100% do it again. There's already, like
I need dates.
NML is asking for stats, and Richie, and like they're asking, we literally took, all we did our Google sheet like we do for the normal standings and have all of those results. And Richie and maybe Josh Gartman are looking at the player stats, and we will 100% do it again in Atlanta for September. And it was just super fun to get, also like Cameron Irwin and, Michelle will be able to participate next time and get not only the owners, MLP executives, the players, and then, partners like Michelle and Cameron and other people that are involved, Dom Catalano as well. Just to it's super fun bonding experience, and just fun. Pickleball's just so fun that it's amazing.
Brooks, I don't want to invite myself, but is there a spot for me? Let me know.
Sure. Yeah.
Wow. Let me know.
The golden silence.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll edit that out. If there is a spot, let me know. I will come to Atlanta for that.
I think the wait list for participation after everybody saw how much fun it is going to be super long. But yeah,
there's some teams that need some help though.
I play with you any day, Tyson. You can play on the right.
Yes.
You can play on the right.
I'm a lefty, so
I know. Yeah,
this will be perfect for us.
Deadly combo.
That's right.
That's amazing. I'm pumped. I'm here for it.
Let's get into the season 1 recap. What, from your perspective, the league's perspective, were the major highlights of season 1?
Wow. There's I think every single challenger team made it to the knockout rounds out of each in each of the 3 events so far. I think you see that the margins are just super tight. I mean, it can be the difference between losing a dream breaker might be the difference between making the knockout rounds or not making it. And that could be the difference between, the way our point system works, that could be the difference between getting 6 points or 9 points in an event. And when you look at the standings, that, that can make a huge difference on not only on, who makes the premier level in 2024 and who makes challenger level in 2024.
Yeah, I noticed that too. So we have every single challenger level team made the quarterfinals at least one time in the season, and 9 out of the 12 premier level teams did that as well, which means the margins are tight. A ton of it is going to the group you get selected to play in is going to matter each and every event, because the difference between getting knocked out by the strongest team there early versus not meeting up with them until later in the tournament is going to matter. And what about as far as improving from event to event? I know that was a major goal of Major League Pickleball. What measures were taken to make sure that happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think this year has always been, we added 12 new teams, so it was a challenge. So how do you integrate those 12 teams now and how do you sort of set the table for long-term success. And the compromise or the solution to that was, 12 teams in Challenger, 12 teams in Premier. They flip-flop in 2 seasons. And I know that sometimes admittedly, that gets a little bit confusing to people. But I think this was the best way to set the stage for 2024 going forward. And that being said, like, because this year is a transition year and because everything came together so quickly in November with the merger with Vive and the PPA, we've always tried to iterate every single event. And, after the first event, we sort of changed how people got out of we changed to like net games as a tiebreaker to get out of the group because we saw that was unfair. And then, we've changed challenges from, 1 per game to 3 per match. And we started out with a stack of changes from Mesa to Daytona that was this, and then Daytona to San Clemente, everyone is significantly less changes, to where hopefully now we're just like sort of improving around the margins and just making little tweaks here and there. Like, again, we changed for this last one, we changed to make sure that the number 1 and the 2 seed can't be from the same group. Just small changes like that. And to be honest, I'm not sure if that would have affected, I didn't go back and look if that would have affected it. But yeah, this year is always about its iteration, like creativity and like just doing the right thing. And we've always been open to making these small changes as long as they don't, sort of upset the competitive balance.
And one thing you mentioned too at the top with the season 1 finale being the day after a long weekend, there was a lot of talk about the Seattle Pioneers. And even Thomas Wilson last week told us of like, he felt for them, they're coming off of this high of winning the San Clemente. Then they come the next day, they get trounced. But is that something you can implement for season 2? How do you balance that feedback and implement the changes in such a tight time frame?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we will look at. To be honest, like, I don't know if it's something we can, there's only so many days and weeks in a year.
Right.
And I think our event is already December 10th. So if there's somehow, we can pull it off, we'll look at it and consider it. But obviously can't make any promises. But again, I think we've shown to the players across the board that we're always looking to get better and do things better. Even if that's a little bit not chaotic, but results in, it's not the same thing every time, but we're okay with that, at least for this year, again, as this is transition to setting up more long-term stability.
Well, we talked to James Blake a little while ago as well, and he said one of the draws for him to be an owner and to have this position in Major League Pickleball is that pickleball being so young and professional pickleball being young, you have input on the future of the game. How much pressure, you being the commissioner, is there to make sure you get it right so that the future of pickleball is set up properly?
I personally feel a lot of pressure, and I'll be honest, but I also, I value that responsibility to all of these guys as well. They've invested a lot of money, and everybody's competitive, and we want to do a great job. So if I ever make a mistake or don't address something, there's have been some issues behind the scenes that are contentious, and we always just, try and listen to everybody, listen to all the stakeholders, and then make the best possible decision, based on fairness and competition and, for the betterment of the league. But pickleball is in its infancy as a sport. We in our league are in, this thing is not even 2 years old. There's going to be tons of things that we miss or changes that we continue to make, or things that were not considered that you're going to have to address. But I take my role very, very seriously. And I hope some of the owners, Caitlin Kerr hates me because every time we do a random draw, she gets the short end of the stick, and that happened to that happened to Zubin last year. And it doesn't, no matter somebody's always going to get the short end of the stick. That's a little bit of a lesson in life and sports, I think. When the random, referees make bad calls, it's just human nature. And, the luck of the draw sometimes when I'm going to do these lottery balls tomorrow,
right.
The fact that so many owners are like, when are we getting the order? When are we getting the order? When it tells how much they care.
Tell us about the lottery balls.
Yeah. So for the season 2 draft, we are doing the order of the picks, as again, teams that were in Premier are now going to Challenger, and vice versa. Teams that are in Challenger are going to Premier. So I'm going to do a lottery ball pick tonight, and we'll publish the results of that probably tomorrow to the public over what the draft pick order is for the season 2 draft, which happens July 12th in New York City. So that's coming up in a couple weeks. I think tonight is the deadline for players to apply for the draft. And then we'll publish the draft list to all the owners on Wednesday, and the order will get published sometime either Tuesday or Wednesday.
So we talked about record numbers of people tuning in to watch pickleball, and you're talking about the applicants that are going to apply to be part of this draft coming up next week. Are we seeing record number of applicants as well?
Yeah, I think I checked this morning, and I think it's over 600 people. And I think
oh my gosh.
I think for each of the shuffle drafts, I think the last shuffle draft, it was over 400 or so. So yeah, vast majority of players that everybody cares about are coming back. I think it'll be an exciting season 2. And it just the level of interest continues to get better and better.
How do you choose if you're a challenger level team with all the influx of new names? Like, how can all these GMs keep track of the new and up and coming talent?
No pun intended. It's super, super challenging.
Right?
A lot of, I know that I know at least one GM that I talked to during the event was walking around, spent one day, I think it was maybe Friday, just scouting other players. And I know a lot of them are probably talking to some of the players now. Some are better at it than others, obviously. Vivian Glosman getting picked by the Barrier Breakers, that was a great choice. And I think Richie and Jeff are really dialed into the pickleball scene and watch every single pickleball thing and, talk to other players and, watch other pickleball tournaments and do their homework. And then from there, it's, everybody's best guess.
Yeah.
It's really hard. Like, premier level is one thing. You can look at Duper, you can look at the ratings, you can get a great idea of where people stand. But as you move down into that challenger level, unless you have someone that is really tapped into the sport, you mentioned Richie and those guys, it can be really tricky. And we saw it this year. We saw some people that maybe weren't really that popular of players. We hadn't seen them a lot in tournament play. Some of them are MVPs of challenger level league, and so that's going to make a huge difference. And I'm really excited to see what people come up with this second time around. Do you expect the draft to move differently at all this season than it did last season? As far as
what do you mean in that? Yeah.
Like, the women went first, and the whole idea was that you had to have a strong women's duo, and then now we see the Pioneers had won 2 finals in the premier level, and I think it's ever changing and always moving, and people don't necessarily know the strongest way to approach it currently because it is so new.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not sure. I'm just as eager to see that as you are, as a sort of person sitting on the sidelines and watching this unfold. Obviously, beyond Ben and Riley, I think you could make an argument for a lot of male players to go after that. And then again, I think after the top 3 female players, there's 4 or 5 that you could offer or go next. So Yeah. I don't know.
We're going to be on the edge of our seats.
Yeah.
We talked about, we're moving into season 2 and every event making some improvements. You're saying that list is going down. Mm-hmm. What are the main improvements you made over the course of season 1 that we saw, or changes?
Well, I think I mentioned a couple of them a little bit earlier, just changing like how groups got out of the tiebreakers for how groups got out of the draw, to changing the number one, how, like, whether the seeds came out of the same group. We're continually trying to iterate the video review process. I think it's getting a little bit better, still some internal challenges there. I think one of the huge things would be paddle testing, where, again, this has been a hot button issue in pickleball. In coming out of Mesa, it was the drumbeat was getting louder and louder that this is really bad issue. We need to address this. So in Daytona, we took a bunch of data but didn't have any consequences, right? Found out where what the status of what the distribution of the deflection was across all the paddles that were played, and we required everybody to get tested. So in San Clemente, we did the same thing. We tested every single paddle. I think in Daytona, we tested like 240 paddles because we just tested everybody once. And then in San Clemente, we tested, I think, like about the same number of unique paddles, but I think like over 430 total paddles tested, where, like one paddle, somebody's paddle got tested 3 or 4 times. And we set the parameters based on the data that we collected in Daytona. Like if the paddle comes below or above a certain deflection force, that it was going to be we were not going to allow the paddle to be used in play. And so we did that in San Clemente. Also, a bit of anxiety for me. I'm like, hopefully, we don't want to get in and have like 30 paddles get taken out of play, and or somebody like not have enough paddles left or whatever. It ended up being 9 out of the entire amount tested, and so that was a really big step forward for us. And we'll continue to iterate that process, and we're continuing to do like more dynamic testing, and the dynamic testing being like finding out the actual correlation between what, like, the deflection measurement that we're doing and then ball speed coming off the paddle, and making that correlation tighter, such that our on-site testing continues to be like the best representation of, again, all you care about really is like that the ball doesn't come off too fast. So that's a huge step. And then I think we also like saw some really, really, really interesting data from that you can start to see the progression of, I'll call it deterioration, for lack of a better word, in terms of like paddles getting hotter and hotter over the course of an event. And some brands started just barely above our threshold, and then like incrementally got close, but not over the edge. And then some would start like way, like a really low deflection. And then the next match, it would be like, so for, not to get too complicated, but our deflection is 50, the deflection force. Like one paddle would start like way above average at like a 75. And then the next match it would come in, it would be like 60. And the next match it would come in, it would be like 45. Like some of them are deteriorating really, really, really quickly. And others are, there's the whole range in between. So that's really super interesting data that we're collecting, sharing with, the players. Were told if they're told privately if their paddle failed. And then they were able to provide another paddle, have it tested, and they were able to use that. And also just, us being in touch with the paddle manufacturers as well, and sort of sharing this data behind the scenes so they understand like what's going on. It's super interesting. So we'll continue to use all of that data, continue to get the dynamic testing to draw a correlation back to the ball speed, and then probably make a couple tweaks before September to determine, do we keep the do we keep that number in terms of like what the deflection number is at the same number, or do we go higher or lower? And I don't know the answer to that right now. I think it's probably pretty close is my best guess right now.
And what determines that like what kind of thought process goes into saying that will be the number? Are you just looking at the quality of play?
The dynamic testing will do that, and getting feedback from pro players like, okay, this is a paddle that's a 45. This is a paddle that's a 55. This is a paddle that's a 65. Where do you guys, and again, this is an iterative process, and we're just one stakeholder with both USA Pickleball and the PPA and the pro players, and trying to determine, again, the best, like what is the best for the product of the game while also maintaining, safety for the players.
Right.
So it's testing, data collection, talking about it. What does this look like in real time?
Yeah.
And, we sort of have data now on like what paddles are hot and what paddles are not. And so determining like what is that sweet spot for, again, making the game, the product so that there's, every shot, every rally is not just drive, pop up and also maintaining, safety for players.
What's been the players' receptivity to that, addressing that piece? I feel like there was so much talk about it, and then I give you guys a lot of credit for taking it very seriously and alleviating that pressure from the players that feel like they are by the books and doing it right. Like, what's been the player receptivity?
Yeah, I think the good news is I didn't have anybody like being like, what are you doing? So that in that case, like, I think it was a roaring success. And I think the feedback from our lab guys, the engineers that are on site were doing it, was especially, I think the players sort of they know which ones are like over the line and which ones are not. And again, that line, what is over the line is still a little bit of a gray area, but again, they like the ones that the players knew or like kind of knew that were probably going to fail were paddles that were, 2 months old or 3 months old or whatever. There's paddles. They know that there's a correlation between how long the paddles are being played with and when they're starting to degrade again, and degrade meaning like getting just way too powerful.
Yeah. The other interesting thing here is, from my perspective, I'm watching this, and pickleball, again, we've said it multiple times here, is so young. And in other sports, they are always playing defense to these types of things. Are you guys like trying to tell the future of what like the next paddle gate is, or are you always just have your team in place to address an issue as soon as it pops up?
No, yeah, we're definitely doing that. And that's where we're also working closely with USA Pickleball and the PPA and trying to all come up with what we feel are good guidelines. First of all, clear guidelines from the beginning that determine that outline what the paddle performance characteristics should be, and that's for both spin and for deflection. So that's number one, is defining clear rules. And then two, coming up with the proper compliance tests that can be implemented in the field. And then also, sort of understanding that there is this situation where, and baseball and softball went through the same thing, where like you understand that the equipment degrades over time, right? And so how do you set the guidelines clear such that you know that that's going to happen? And then how do you set it such that as you see it happen, like in baseball and softball, the way it happened was like, I think it was like a ceramic coating or something would wear off, and then there was like aluminum underneath. And then, but like, so you could physically see from the bat by looking at it once it actually passed the threshold. So, to answer your question, we want to work with USA Pickleball and PPA and our own internal processes and try and see around the corner and not just be reactive. And also probably the most important thing is to work with the paddle manufacturers as well, so that they understand, because we don't want to, the last thing we want to do is like surprise a bunch of manufacturers and be like, all of your paddles can't be used.
Right.
Like that's not, everybody has a stake in this, and we want to do it in a way that's fair, that, levels the playing field and is fair for the players and keeps the players safe. But also understands like the realities of manufacturing and marketing and all the other factors.
Okay. Well, we've talked about the replay system that you guys have in place now, video replay. We have the blue-orange card system that was implemented this first half of 2023. We got the new paddle testing procedures.
Yeah.
What are we going to see in season 2 here? Do you have anything new in the regulations coming out for the first event in Georgia, or any talks for anything like that?
I wanted to so I think we had 2 blue cards the entire season 1. And again, our intention with that was we don't want to be tennis. And our intention with that was not to mute or neuter, or I don't know what term you want to use, to like
silence.
We want finger wagging, and we want stare downs, and we want andiamo and things like that. Just wanted to make the comment about the blue and orange cards. In terms of what new guidelines, we have an internal process. We have a competition committee, which is myself, Steve Kuhn, the founder, our CEO, and then 4 representatives from owners. Some of them are owners and some of them are GMs. And so we have a meeting, I think this Thursday, and I have an agenda already. And so our goal there is to just discuss things that people have brought up, and then and debate it, sometimes vote on it, and then go from there. My goal at this point is that, again, I think, we started out this, we did this, and now this, and then hopefully by this time we're down to like, 1 or 2 changes, or just, better training for the referees, or being clear with them on like what should be done in certain situations. I think by and large, all of the referees this event did an amazing job, and they continue to get better and better.
Yeah, Courtney,
so the answer is I don't know. Yeah, Courtney's
she's
awesome.
Like, she's so. I was talking to her after the event. I'm like, you walked the perfect line of like being assertive and like not like bossy, but like the players respect her. They're not gonna when she makes a call, she's very clear, she's concise, she's decisive and assertive. It's perfect for TV from that perspective. I wanted to ask you about Giulio, new CEO of MLP. What makes him the right leader, and what can you tell us about his vision and where you think he can add to MLP in that way?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is Giulio has a long-term relationship with Steve Kuhn, our founder, and as everybody knows, Steve is the visionary. He's the consummate visionary. And so I think Giulio's best traits are that he has the experience in kind of being that go-between between Steve, the visionary, and channeling his joy and his brilliance in ways to grow the sport of pickleball and do things at the highest strategic level, like grow pickleball internationally for Major League Pickleball, other investment opportunities that we have. Just to be that person who's the go-between between the visionary and the operation, who's doing the rest of the people who are in the operation doing day to day, and sort of channeling the future vision of our company and our sport in general as well.
That's cool.
Yeah. Every idea guy needs a guy that can implement everything, right? Is that that's a perfect fit. Brooks, I am so pumped to see the draft, to see season 2, how it shakes up. Honestly, like even the teams that probably performed under their expectations or even well under their expectations, if things shake up right, they could still find themselves in the premier level category for the next season in 2024. So it's anyone's game. Thank you so much for your time and for your energy and all you do for the sport and the league. And we will catch up with you soon. Good luck with the draft. I hope all the owners get drawn first from the lottery ball picker. And anything else before we close?
No, yeah, I want to say that, on the standings in general, I mean, you have, again, if everybody doesn't know, we have 3 more events, but the standings are a season-long running standings. So the top 12 teams will finish this year in Premier and start 2024 in Premier, and 13 through 24 finish and start 2024 in Challenger. So I think at the top you have Bay Area Breakers and Seattle Pioneers, who each have a couple championships to their name in the first several events. I think are probably pretty close to a lock to make Premier. Without a catastrophic failure at this point. And then you've got a handful of teams at, Miami Pickleball Club, Austin Pickleballers, California Black Bears, Florida Smash, Atlanta Bouncers, Brooklyn Aces, DC Pickleball Team, St. Louis Shock, that are all in the 10 to 17 range, that all, one championship in the next season can change that really, really quickly, like winning one event. So, how they draft and how they, in the challenger level, once they do the draft, how they pick up players and what new players become available. It's a never ending narrative and story that we hope that, will engage people and keep people coming back to watch it.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're at the bottom right now, are you still hopeful that you can make a push for Premier? Like, that's got to be attainable.
Yeah,
for most, as you mentioned.
Again, I haven't done the math in my head or the model. Like, that's something that we'll work on, is doing the model and what percentages people have. But I think for some of the teams at the bottom, they definitely need a couple, have to win some events.
They have to win, and other teams have to lose, right?
Yeah.
And that makes this draft all the more interesting to me because of that.
Yeah.
Like, if you're one of those teams, you're like, I have to hit on every single draft pick, or
but here's an important part of this also, is like going into 2024, even if you're even if at some point you're mathematically eliminated from making Premier, how high you finish in the total standings affects your draft order for 2024. So we wanted to have that anti-tanking
good point,
sort of point in there, so that, again, like, even if let's say you're in 20th place and you're mathematically eliminated, if you win an event and get, move up to 14th or 15th, that's still, you could end up with the third pick in the challenger draft for 2024, and that can make a huge difference. Every match matters, even once teams are mathematically eliminated.
Every point, almost, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes every point.
The tiebreakers come down to point differential, often.
Yeah, and there's a lot of I'm looking at the standings right here, and like you said, like in that 7 to like 15 range, there are only 2, 3, 4 points separating, a handful of teams. So it's super exciting, and it really is like, even at the bottom of the standings, there's a chance, and you still have to fight to get your draft order as well for the next season. So really exciting things to come, Brooks. Good luck drawing the draft order tonight. And we'll keep our fingers crossed that all of our favorites get to pick first, which is
hopefully
everybody.
Caitlin Kerr doesn't get the 12th pick.
Yeah. So, might not ever talk to me again.
Yeah. No. She's like, I'm over the chance. It's hilarious.
Thanks, Brooks. Thanks for your time and for all you do. Again, we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Thanks. I appreciate it, y'all.
Bye.
Bye, Brooks.
All right. Super interesting stuff from Brooks. Again, we have 2 seasons in 2023, 24 teams. 12 of them were Premier League the first half, and 12 of them were Challenger League. Now those ownership groups are swapping places in the league. So the Challenger level ownership will now be Premier level ownership, and vice versa. And based on both seasons in 2023, that will determine your placement in Premier level in 2024 or Challenger level. So if you are in the top 50% of teams overall, cumulative, out of both leagues, you will be Premier level next year. That is a lot of pressure for a lot of these teams. All teams. Some teams obviously have been winning a lot, and maybe they are a little more relaxed about this. But with the draft looming next week, Michelle, who's going first this year? Last year we saw Anna Lee Waters.
Yep. Which I don't think was a bad pick by any means at number one, obviously. Yeah. But, and this is no disrespect to Anna Lee Waters, I do believe Ben Johns is going to be number one.
Okay.
Because to your point, the event points, they matter. And so the Seattle Pioneers had Ben Johns. They won 2 of the titles, almost a season title. And I think you can build a team around Ben Johns because of many reasons, not only his ability, but also he leads your draft. So you have his mind. You take him number one. He's going to be able to comb through the draft better than anyone and construct a team that he believes he can win with at championship level. And he proved that with the Seattle Pioneers. So I think Anna Lee will be 2. But I think Ben Johns has clearly established himself as the number one.
Okay, so we got Ben Johns first, Anna Lee second, and then, you've got those handful of female
then
players.
Riley.
And
I think Riley goes 3.
Okay, Riley goes 3.
I think they're going to start bolstering the male players in the first round because of what the analytics and what the ownership groups have learned now. Originally, it was based around creating strong female partnerships, which I do believe is still a huge, huge factor. But I also believe that it was proven when you have a Ben Johns or a dominant male player that can anchor your team, not only in doubles, but also in the Dream Breaker, which I don't think anyone's necessarily 100% drafting based on singles at all anymore. I think you can still win without single specialist players. Especially when you have Ben Johns. But I think Riley's going to be sneaking into that 3, and then I it's hard to tell from there. But JW Johnson could be in the mix at the top. I think Julian Arnold works his way into the first round. A lot of good options there. But I definitely think Ben Johns 1, Anna Lee 2, Riley Newman 3.
Okay. And then we've got Catherine Parento. We've got a lot of those players.
Irina Tereshchenko, who was a second rounder. I think, I don't know how much she'll bump up because she's a GOAT. Like, how do you not take Irina in the first round? She's won 5 titles. So I think she definitely sneaks into the first round. Dylan Frazier could be up there. Georgia Johnson. A name that could sneak into the first round as well, from Leah Jansen. I don't think she's going to be in the third round available. It's going to be so interesting how what we saw at the beginning of 2023 and where everyone landed and how it shifts.
I'm really excited to see it. You spoke a little bit about Irina not going to go so far down as she did last draft. Who is going to be the biggest mover from last draft to this draft?
That for me is Thomas Wilson.
I agree,
think
100%.
He's not going to be the 4th round guy, right?
Right.
Not because we love him, because we had him on and he's such a nice man and for many reasons an all-around good person. I think he's such an underrated player. The heart condition is addressed. I think the health for ownership would have been like maybe a factor of him not going super high, but the fact that it's put to rest, he's fully healthy. The heart is going to sustain for what the doctor says for the rest of time. And then the other one I think is Julian Arnold. He was taken in the 3rd round, number 29. I think he moves. MVP, proved his prowess, has been working his game in so many ways. Doubles, men's doubles, mixed doubles, singles. Obviously with the LA Mad Drops, we saw that on display. So I think those 2 guys bump up. from the third and fourth round, respectively. It's still crazy for me to see Thomas in the fourth round. I just don't see that happening again. I think he's a hidden weapon. So that's the other interesting conversation for me would be which players drop out of Premier and which ones come in from Challenger. I'm not necessarily...
Let's see which Challenger players really exceeded expectations, and we'll see in Premier.
Yeah, well, Pablo Tellez leading that list. Bay Area Breakers, so solid. Christian Alshon in the mix, I would think. I think with a player like Pablo, he's easily adaptable with different personalities, it seems. I don't know him super well personally, but I think he definitely jumps in. Connor Garnett in doubles and singles. He got a silver medal in San Clemente the weekend prior to this. I think he is on the map, and I could see him taking some thunder from some of the guys that were in the first round. And then for the ladies, Jill Braverman is going to for sure get a shot at the Premier level, I would think. Yeah. MVP from the Challenger level in San Clemente. Eva Radzikowska, she's so solid. So solid. Twice
MVP of the league. So I agree. I think so too. I mean, I will be watching the entire draft as it takes place. I'm so excited to see how it pans out, who gets who, which teams are matched with, which players are matched with which ownership. And it's going to be really, really exciting. Thank you, Michelle, for your expertise there. I mean,
we'll see how much of that comes true on July 12th.
Some of it will come true. I have no doubt. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Michelle, for your expertise and your co-hosting. And we will be back next week with another episode. If you missed any of the action or all of the action in San Clemente, you can go to majorleaguepickleball.net, click the Watch Now button. They also have a news tab there. If you need to see team standings, anything like that, it's all found on their website. You can also follow Major League Pickleball on all social media platforms. Until next week, Michelle,
bye.
Paddle taps.
Paddle taps.
We tap. We do paddle tapping.
We always tap. That's right.
right.
See you next week.